Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of The Last of Us Factions Poopcast with yours truly, Dr. Pooplove. This is the show for faction heads made by a day one factions head. And before I begin, if you like any of the gameplay shown in the YouTube version of this podcast, you can check me out live on twitch.tv/Dr. Pooplove. I try to stream Monday through Thursday around 4:30 Eastern Time. Also, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I can try to answer them in the next episode. But let's get into the first topic of the day, which is the section I like to call Patch History Lessons. Now, last week we talked about patch 1.01, the day one patch for The Last of Us on PS3, and today I will talk about patch 1.02 for PS3. Now, this patch was launched on June 28th, 2013, so it was very shortly after the game released. And there were quite a number of multiplayer changes that were implemented into this patch. One of them was the host migration had been improved. Losing connection to a host during a migration should occur less often. And if I do remember correctly, sometimes if someone would quit the game would just end for everyone. So this was a very welcome change. Another notable one was the intro camera was fixed for some introductory cutscenes. So when you enter into a match, the very first thing happens, four people on your team move forward and someone says something like, "They ain't getting our gear." That was fixed. I believe, if I remember correctly, the camera was just all over the place sometimes, or it started from way back, or just wasn't in the right place. There was also a couple of connectivity issues that were fixed. Honestly, can't really remember what some of those were. But some gameplay changes were made. Explosion Expert Level 2 was actually selectable. So initially, I believe it was just kind of permanently locked, even if you had unlocked it. So you could never actually use Explosion Expert Part 2 for the first couple weeks. The second thing is voting time for match selections was reduced to 15 seconds. This was very welcome because I remember initially the voting time was 30 seconds and it just felt like forever. And you were just waiting there and everyone had already voted and, still waiting for it to be selected. It was ridiculous. Also, this is when they added the No Party playlist, which is the playlist I play in right now, most of the time in Supply Raid. And I think this was very much needed at the time because people were just encountering full parties and just getting swamped, and people were getting discouraged from playing. Now, I think this does also kind of begin the process of where I think Naughty Dog, in a lot of ways, hurt the multiplayer, which is separating player pools too much. But that really, I think, has less to do with the parties allowed versus no parties playlist and more to do with the DLC exclusive playlists that they had added and how they handled that. And then finally, in this patch, melee against the down character now uses the same range as normal melee. I don't remember if it was smaller or bigger. I'm gonna assume the down the melee range was a little bit smaller against the downed character. People were probably kicking or punching at nothing when they were trying to just kick to execute a downed player. But yeah, that is it for patch 1.02. There weren't only a couple of kind of minor changes. I think probably the biggest was the addition of the no party playlist, um, something that we still have today, and something that I know at least I typically play no parties, and I am glad they have that because sometimes you just can't compete against a full team when you're playing solo. But that's that. So let's move on to the topic of today's show. And I need to preface the topic by saying this. I know people are tired of battle royales. I know many do not want to see it come to factions. Um, and I know just mentioning factions and battle royale in the same sentence gets people really fired up. But regardless of that, I actually really think that some form of a battle royale is in the works for the sequel. And one of the strongest reasons that I think is out there to kind of, now I wouldn't say prove it, but one of the strongest evidences of this is actually something I haven't heard be brought up much in some of those, salacious kind of clickbait videos that people make where they say, is a battle royale coming? And then they reference some like 4chan or posts from some unknown source that just says, oh, it's a battle royale. No, I'm coming to you straight from the mouths of Naughty Dog themselves. And here I am, I present for the record 4 tweets which I think have the strongest evidence that at least Naughty Dog has thought about it. So let me bring to you my first one that I have, and was made by Vinit Agarwal, and this is a tweet by him. He is currently a director or co-director at Naughty Dog, which many people assume he is actually director of the multiplayer because we at least know he helped develop Uncharted's multiplayer. Seems like that's his focus. So, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together there. But this is his tweet from February 25th, 2018. He says, my 5 favorite games of all time, in no order: Bloodborne, The Last of Us, PUBG, Smash Bros. Melee, and Chrono Trigger. What are yours? And the PUBG is what I really want to hone in on because these Naughty Doggers, there's a lot of them that love PUBG. Let me bring you to tweet number 2 I present for the record. This is from none other than Neil Druckmann himself. And this is actually earlier than the previous one, and this is 12/30/2017. And this is what he says. 2017 was an incredible year for game. Here are my favorites, in no particular order: Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Cuphead, Resident Evil 7, Horizon Zero Dawn, Golf Story, PUBG, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Sonic Mania. So, the Druckmann himself, now co-president of Naughty Dog, we've seen he's a big fan. Let's see if I can present my next evidence for the record, and this is from Naughty Dog. And this comes on 11/13/2018, and this is actually the day where PUBG was brought to PS4, and there was iconic Naughty Dog skins. You could wear Nathan Drake's desert outfit, and you could also use Ellie's backpack from The Last of Us. And Naughty Dog themselves say, "We have a lot of PUBG fans here at the studio, so we were pretty psyched to have some Uncharted and The Last of Us items in the PS4 launch. See you on December 7th." So here you have Naughty Dog admitting that they have a lot of PUBG fans. Now, again, does this mean they're going to make a PUBG type game? No, but they thought about it. They were sitting around, um, you know, thinking, playing this game, because they probably play together, and they're like, I mean, this has a lot of elements of factions. I wonder if we could probably do this better. And then my final tweet for the record is another one from Neil Druckmann, and he kind of quote tweets the PUBG announcement and says, "Brings a whole new meaning to The Last of Us." And so, again, they could just be excited that PUBG is bringing some Naughty Dog type stuff in there. And so I don't want to go too far down the speculation hole of saying that this means a battle royale is coming, but I'm just saying they have had to have talked about this, and they've had to think it. And I mean, I've only played a little bit of PUBG. Mostly have just seen some Dr. Disrespect clips. But I know it's always kind of seemed a bit reminiscent of factions. I mean, you can be first person, but it's kind of third person survival based game. So is factions. It's just in the PS3/PS4 version, it's more of a smaller arena. But I mean, I know I've been thinking, like, well, what would factions look like in an open world survival type game like PUBG? And all I'm trying to say is Naughty Dog thought of it too. They have had to have at least thought of the idea. And maybe they decided not to act on it, but I just think they probably explored it at least. Um, and I mean, let's just be honest, some elements of the gameplay of factions, as well as, some elements of The Last of Us Part 2, kind of make it seem like it could be a possibility. The open world area that I doubt you would drop into from an airplane, but maybe, you just come from various corners of the map, would probably be Seattle. They base pretty much the whole Part 2 story in Seattle, so they have all the assets in place, the design in place. They probably can just open up some walls and, pretty much have this be one full kind of map. And, just the survival elements that Factions has in the original, it just seems to be made for this kind of stuff. And what else? There's, the idea that, like, okay, well, what do you have possibility to close the map in on itself to kind of create that small circle? Well, spores. I mean, that kind of makes the most sense. And then in the leaks themselves, you see gas masks, and so it's like, well, what else could these be for? And so they also, they've delayed it. So these tweets came out, like, 2017, 2018, right? And then in 2019. And presumably during that time, they were at least in the initial stages of development of the multiplayer. It was still at that point officially confirmed, that it was going to be with the Part 2. It was only until 2019 they decided, and they said, the scope and vision is kind of too big to include and release at the same time. To me, again, I'm not saying we have proof. I'm just saying the pieces are in place, and I kind of think they decided to try this out, and maybe they that's why it's so big in scope that they can't bring it to a um, the part two, and why it's not done. Um, Also, the fact that it hasn't actually been um, officially announced or shown or anything like that, it kind of is following this marketable strategy that other battle royals have had, where they just kind of drop, like shadow drop, whenever it's ready. Like only a few content creators get the knowledge like a few days before that they are going to be playing this game, and the hype train just gets real when stuff like that happens. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I just think a lot of the pieces are in place for this to actually be a thing. But again, I always have to preface that like we don't actually have any official confirmed stuff on this, and so I don't want people to think that this is me trying to confirm it. It's just saying I think a lot of evidence is maybe out there that kind of makes it seem like it's the case. And honestly, I know people don't like this. They don't want a battle royale. They want it to be um, just the same thing, or you know, just some minor tweaks here and there. Honestly, I welcome this. I welcome it if they were to bring it into Factions Part 2. I think you need something to sustain a large player base. It's only going to help out some of the smaller modes like Supply Raid and Interrogation that I'm sure are coming back as well. Um, to have a stronger player base, to have, honestly, a battle pass or something that's going to get Naughty Dog money, so that they can continue to support and update the game. I mean, we haven't had an update in years, and you can shoot through walls and freaking crab walk and all this stuff. You know, why would they change anything if they're not making any money from it, really? So you got to give them a way to make money, and then they're going to continue to support it. So I kind of welcome these things. Maybe I'll regret saying that, um, but yeah. So that's what I think is showing that there may be a battle royale coming. Um, but now let's actually get to the final segment, and this is the Factions 2 Watch, where we talk about any new news, any new insights about the sequel. And that's all we have for today. So I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of The Last of Us Factions Poopcast with Dr. Pooplove, and I will catch you all in the next one.